Here we are, the convo back in business. Norm and Mike, tick tock, the shit clock is ticking, Rick, to use a good old phrase from Jim Leahy. John Dunsworth, rest in peace. We are inside about, what, 6 days?
Five now.
5 days from the trade deadline. Orlov and Hathaway to Boston. O'Reilly settling in with the Maple Leafs. Are we on the precipice of an arms race, Mike, or do the Leafs just stay in their lane and do what they have to do? Good morning.
Good morning, Norm. Well, as to whether they're going to make another blockbuster, another big move, I think no. I think the big move was O'Reilly, and it was borne out because, there were a lot of teams out there looking for centers, and Kyle Dubas had to move proactively because I think O'Reilly would have been a target for a lot of these teams. And if you look, Jonathan Taves is now probably out for the year. Mm-hmm. Sean Monahan hasn't been able to come back and play significantly with Montreal. So centers are going to be really tough for teams that are looking for a second line center or a third line center to get. So it's a situation where he needed to move, and he did, and it's paying dividends. And you saw, they actually went into the House of Horrors, Marine Midland, HSBC, whatever. Now it's the KeyBank Center, and score 5 goals before sort of sitting back on their laurels. And it was all because of that line that scored 13 points. Now, I'm not going to start talking about like O'Reilly long-term until after the season. But I do think, and just because a lot of people have asked me, whether they think this is a pure rental. I don't think it's a pure rental. I think they wouldn't have traded for him if they didn't think that they had a chance of re-signing him. And if you look at, the salary opening up after the year with Kerfoot, with Kampf, up the middle, and even though Kerfoot's a winger, I think that there's enough money there to sign O'Reilly and also sign Michael Bunting. They're probably going to have to shave some money out someplace else, and they're going to hope that the cap goes up. But I do think this is a longer than a short-term fix. That being said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is the convo, Norm, along with Mike. Kyle Dubas said last week that the relationship with Riley is one of temporary status throughout the rest of the season, as deep as they can go into the playoffs, not ruling out a longer term relationship. He's already endeared himself to the fan base just with his work ethic, scoring 3 goals against his former team, paced by Mitch Marner and his 5 assists that night. So, and again, just the kind of player he is, there's just a ginned up excitement surrounding O'Reilly, what he's meant to the game of hockey, how he plays the game, his pedigree as a champion, and how he can integrate his expertise and his abilities into a lineup that certainly needs an injection of that. Not that it's not good in and of itself, but I mean, this is time. This is the time to make the amendments, to do a bit of accessorizing in order to set forth the plan for the playoffs. Just reading some of the OG comments, some of my interaction with OGs and converts, I'm getting this all-in vibe, Mike. All in.
Well,
are they not kind of going all in, right?
Yeah, I understand the desperation of Leafs Nation to want to go even further all in, but the thing is, I don't think they really can unless they start to trade pieces off of the roster or prospects that in the pipeline. And they don't. Clearly, Kyle Dubas, from his comments after the trade, doesn't want to trade, Matthew Nyes or some Topi Niemela, who's the best defensive prospect. They determined they would rather trade the draft picks because they know what the prospects are. They know, and they're closer to being able to have an impact in the NHL. They need young players on entry-level contracts over the next couple of years because that's going to have to counterbalance the money that they pay to Matthews and to Nylander and other players. So they can't trade Matthew Nyes, unless it's for something that is equally as fiscally beneficial.
What a gamble.
Yeah, no, they're not. I would be dumbfounded if after they make the move for O'Reilly, they trade Nyes or any one of the big prospects in another move. Now, we know they're looking for a defenseman. We know it's undoubtedly it is so. Now they placed Jordy Ben on waivers yesterday to clear his cap space. He'll probably go down to the Marlies. If he clears, he might get claimed because teams are looking for a veteran defenseman. They sent Joey Anderson and Joseph Wall down to the minors yesterday to clear cap space. They have about $2 million in cap space, according to the reports. That is enough to add a defenseman. Now, if it's Gavrikov, they'd have to give up a lot of assets. That's why I don't think it's going to be Gavrikov. If it's a guy like Luke Schenn, then it could be a draft pick. But I do think that one way or the other, they are going to add a defenseman.
So, Mike, in terms of what it takes to get either one of these guys, there is a differentiation. How do either one of these guys plug into this lineup? Never mind what it's going to take, what it costs to get Schenn or Gavrikov, but what does Schenn bring versus Gavrikov to a lineup that can certainly use the defensive help? We know at face value they're not the same guy. You're getting more with one. That's why you have to pay for him. If that indeed were to be the avenue that Kyle Dubas would riskily want to go down.
Well, Gavrikov is more of a matchup top four defenseman. If you plug him in with the Leafs, he probably plays on the second pairing with somebody like Liljegren. And it would allow you to lengthen your lineup to have Giordano play bottom pairing, which is a big benefit because, he can, he's excellent. And if you limit him to 15, 16 minutes a night on the bottom.
You get more for less.
Yeah, exactly. Schenn is a bottom pairing guy. Now, with Schenn, more than likely what happens is he plays with Giordano on the bottom pairing, and then you have Brody moving over to the left side to play either with Liljegren or Justin Hall. Also it lengthens the lineup. It doesn't make it necessary for you to play Connor Timmins or even Rasmus Sandin against certain teams. I do think they want to play Sandin in the playoffs. I think they just want a plan B in case Sandin gets sort of physically intimidated and teams like to target him. I'm not saying him per se, but like when you're getting pounded by Corey Perry and Alex Killorn and Patrick Maroon and all these guys that the Lightning have, you need somebody probably who provides a little more physical pushback. Right. And even though the O'Reilly Achari deal was great in terms of improving them in a position they needed to improve, they really didn't add that physical aspect. And maybe one player doesn't do it for them, but I do think Schenn would go a long way to helping them in terms of physical pushback.
In terms of toughness, Mike, one team versus the next, we know that Tampa are the odds-on bet to be tougher than the Maple Leafs. Will that indeed prove to be the reason why they can overcome the Maple Leafs again? This is an opportunity for the Maple Leafs to show the hockey world what they're made of, and by proving it to themselves, right? So again, I'm not saying it's David versus Goliath by any means, because statistically these teams are extremely close, but one has the experience, one has the kind of players that you would think would reap the benefits of success when you're in that incubator, when the clock is ticking, when it's an elimination kind of thing, versus a team that just hasn't proven that it can do that. But certainly time will tell. Mike, let me give you a sense of where some fans' heads are at. Matthew, don't call me Tony Tanti. Do the Leafs need to go all in after the Boston trade, and now the Rangers might be getting Kane, New Jersey and Carolina in on Meyer? Do the Leafs need to go big and get a top four defenseman plus a middle six forward? It's just a lot of complications with so little time. I mean, again, we talk about limited draft capital and not wanting to supplant players on the roster. I've got to think it's not necessarily a housekeeping move, but one or two other somewhat minor moves to kind of augment the group, support the group, and off they go.
Do I think they should? No, because right now, right now, I don't think you can factor in the fact, because I talked to a number of reporters when the Leafs were in Buffalo about, is Kyle Dubas Is his job on the line? And everybody seems to think that, yes, it's on the line. And then I hear Steve Simmons, who, is tied in and, obviously a longtime, a longtime person on the Toronto scene. And he says that even if the Leafs lose in the first round, there's a chance that Dubas comes back. I think Dubas is not going to sell the farm to get this team. Now, I think he believes that the moves that he's made and the move that he will make the chance of them beating Tampa Bay a 50-50 proposition. That's all you can really ask from an opponent that has won 2 Stanley Cups and have made 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row. I mean, no matter what the Leafs do, even if they trade for Gavrikov, even if they add Austin Watson or whatever, 2-3 pieces.
Right.
It's a 50-50 proposition against Tampa. Tampa's got the better goaltending. They have the better defense, and the forwards are even. So I think he's trying to improve their chances as much as he possibly can. But are they going to be, in any concept, are they going to be favored against Tampa? No. So it does not behoove you to trade your 2024 first round pick and Matthew Nyes and just empty the coffers on an opportunity to try to win Tampa, and then you may not win it. And if you do that, then Dubas gets fired, and then you have an organization that is bereft of prospects. And I don't think that's the way to go.
These aren't the end of days, and if the Leafs lose in the first round, there will be another season. The Leafs will not be eradicated as a franchise. If the Leafs win the Stanley Cup, there will be another season, and we will be back to talk about all of the great things that we've experienced, but all of the things we're expecting even more of, since the Leafs have finally, not only reached the bar, but kind of eclipsed it and raised it for themselves. So here's another way that one of the OGs is kind of framing the situation as we go forward. Mr. Jason Sparks, great contributor. The fact the Leafs need to add is a detriment to the way Dubas built this team. I mean, don't you want to add regardless? Don't you want to be looking for ways to, like, I've used the word accessorize, augment, improve, strengthen, embolden, which by any means necessary, whichever way you can, if you have the resources to do so, because the ultimate goal in a season and in seasons to come is being triumphant, right? So you want to do that regardless of how the organization is laid out and how it's been put together.
Well, I mean, my counter to that assertion is Boston is adding. Islanders are adding.
Right.
New Jersey is going to add. Tampa and Carolina are going to add. Everybody's adding. I mean, you can say, well, the Leafs have not expanded the core group past the core 4 plus Morgan Riley. But they've gone out. I don't think anybody's criticizing them getting Michael Bunting on a 2-year free agent contract, or improving their goaltending with Matt Murray, even though he's had some injuries, or Ilya Samsonov being an upgrade over Peter Mrazek and Jack Campbell. Getting Giordano for, not a first round pick, for a couple second round picks, then signing him for $800,000. They've been able to piece together a roster that has done pretty damn well in the regular season. Now, we all say, they may not be good enough. They may not be, there might not be the right constitution there in terms of them being able to advance in the playoffs. And I've been the harshest critic of that. I think they need to get tougher. I think they need to get more physical to sort of keep the flies off of the skill guys. But in the end, what this team needs is those core guys to play like core guys. In the end, it's on Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Tavares and Riley to perform when they need them to. And if they do, then they win. And if they don't, they lose.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. What did they lose Game 7 by? Was it 1-0? Was it 2-1 Game 7? Yeah. So all of these guys want to perform, and what is performing, right? For guys who are incredibly offensively skilled and who are known to produce offense, when they can't produce the offense because the other team is so suffocating, then what are you, right? It's the way you develop as a full 3-zone 2-way all-encompassing hockey player, and the expectation amongst themselves has to be that all the experience we've accrued and what we are learning and how we are adding and how we are strengthening will help us will help get us to a better position than we were last year. And that better position really is, having the nerve to win multiple periods when it counts, and as you've said before, Mike, step on the throats of your opponent and put them away. We've Year after year, this team is in a position to clinch, and it can't. Right? And what is it? It's just that one extra goal. These guys, they can score in abundance. It's something that seems so small and minute, but really, depending on how you look at it, is light years away. And it remains to be seen if what they've done will help get it done. And that's certainly why we're along for the ride. Jason M., the Leafs need to worry about themselves, not what everyone else is doing. I get that, Jason, but again, this whole concept of, well, it's sabermetrics, it's analytics. Let's worry about how we're going to play hockey and not be concerned with how our opponents are going to counteract what we're trying to do. It's impossible, because if it were just, again, fantasy versus reality, if it were just that fantastical, the Leafs and the way they've shaped their team should be a multiple Stanley Cup winner by now. You have to pay attention to what other teams are doing. It's a necessary evil in this cruel game that is professional hockey.
Well, for example, I don't think the Boston move was a counter to Toronto's move, because Boston is thinking about winning the Stanley Cup, and they won't face Toronto until the second round if Toronto beats Tampa. But they looked at adding Orlov and adding Hathaway, who's a pain in the ass to play against. He's a typical Bruin type of physical player, and Orlov is a top 4 defenseman, and that would be the way, the way that they improve themselves the most. Now, I think Tampa's going to make a move. They're very limited in terms of what, cap space they have to work with, but they're going to make a move. They're going to try to improve themselves.
Right.
But, the moves that Toronto made, I don't think were analytical. I think, first of all, Achari and O'Reilly strengthen the Leafs up the middle. I do believe that before the end of the season, you will see O'Reilly playing center on one line, Tavares playing center on another line, and Matthews playing center on a third line.
Really quick, sorry to interject. Can I just address that Sheldon Keefe has changed the lines up, right? Yeah. So it's Marner back with Matthews and Bunting, and then you have Tavares, O'Reilly, and Mr. Is it Mr. Willie? Is that the good one?
No, Dr. Nylander is the good one.
Dr. Nylander.
Yeah.
So again, and you're thinking the evolution will continue to kind of spread out the talent, so to speak, on the top 3 lines. Just before you continue your point, is this move by Keith reuniting Marner and Matthews to kickstart
to jumpstart Austin Matthews, because Matthews is not struggling greatly, but right. You want Matthews to be feeling good coming off that knee injury, and he's scored 1 goal since then. So coming off 5 assists against Buffalo, Marner and Matthews have that connection. I think that makes sense to do a 1 or 2 game thing, because Marner will end up being probably back with Tavares. That seems to be Nylander and Matthews on one pairing, Tavares and Marner on the other pairing. Right. And then more than likely, when we get to the playoffs, I think it's going to end up being, Calle Jarnkrok and O'Reilly and Engvall, or like something like that on the third line. And that puts you in that is a matchup line against, say, a Braden Point, or against a Sorelli, or against a Stamp, or whoever's playing, second line, first line center against Tampa. That's the whole purpose of O'Reilly, is as a matchup guy, as a face-off guy. But my point before was, those weren't analytical moves in terms of adding O'Reilly and adding Achari, and they're great face-off guys. It's that they win. It's like Achari played with Boston when they won the Stanley Cup in 2019, the team that, lost to the Blues in Game 7, but got to the Stanley Cup final and beat the Leafs in 2019.
Where does philosophy get you when the chips are down and your career is on the line and you have a team that keeps knocking at the door and nobody answers, right?
Yeah.
Where's philosophy? You have to throw fucking philosophy out the window. You
Well,
need to do what it takes to improve your chances to get to where you want to go. This is not about regular season success or putting guys like Matthews and William Nylander on posters. I mean,
and
it's
I
part of it, but you
and
need
I
to win. That's the whole point.
and I think that Dubas hasn't thrown philosophy out the door, but he does recognize that there are certain shortcomings with the roster over the last few years, and he like the Nick Foligno. I will back the Nick Foligno trade to the hilt.
Right.
Everybody criticizes it because he got hurt after 3 games. But Nick Foligno was the right ad at the right time. It
Sure.
just didn't work because he got hurt. And now you look at Nick Foligno playing fourth line with the Bruins, and he's having a really good year. So it did work, or in concept, it would have worked had he not gotten hurt. And O'Reilly right now is the right guy for the right time. He's a Conn Smythe Trophy winner. He's a Stanley Cup winner. He will be a good matchup against a team like Tampa. He won't shrink from the challenge. The Leafs need that. Now, we got the news this week that Jake Muzzin, and this is the worst kept secret in the world, that Jake Muzzin was going to be shut down for the rest of the regular season and the playoffs. That's the reason why the Leafs are looking for somebody on defense, because they really haven't been able to replace the physicality that Jake Muzzin.
What does that do for the Maple Leafs?
Well, it doesn't do anything cap-wise because they already had him on LTIR. So all the moves that they've made over the last 48 hours are the moves that have opened up cap space. They waived Joey Anderson. He cleared. So now they send his $750,000 down to the minors. Joseph Wall gets sent back down now that Matt Murray has been activated. That's $766,000. Jordy Ben has been waived. They already waived Wayne Simmons. He's officially assigned to the Marlies, but I don't think he'll ever play a game with the Marlies. And Jordy Ben probably won't either. Jordy Ben will, if he clears waivers today at 2 p.m., then more than likely he's an unofficial black ace. He's a guy who's going to skate with the team but never play for the Marlies. They don't want 35-year-old Jordy Ben or Wayne Simmons to take up the ice time of young players trying to develop with the Marlies. Those are players that when the playoffs come around, they will be black aces and could play in certain instances in the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens, if injuries happen. But so they've cleared about $2 million in cap space.
Right.
What they do with that, that's the interesting thing. And the one thing, and I wrote about this, they are at 49 contracts right now. If they add a Luke Schenn or any defenseman, they're going to have to send a contract the other way, because they have to keep one contract space open for when Matthew Nyes is done at Minnesota and signs his entry-level contract with the Leafs. And I think that's going to happen. I think that's almost etched in stone that it's going to happen after.
How does that work, though? If he signs the contract with the Leafs, he has to be with the Leafs? Does he have to?
Yes. Well, it's okay. The Nick Abruzzese signing is sort of a blueprint of this. He finished at Harvard,
right?
But now he finished early and he signed a contract. He was on the Leafs roster. He burned the first year of his contract.
Right.
Nyes, Minnesota, I think, is the top ranked team in the NCAA. They're going to make the Frozen Four. And that's April 7th to April 9th. So the season ends on the 14th. He probably signs a deal, maybe plays one NHL game in the regular season. There's no guarantee he's going to play for them in the playoffs, but they want that, they want that option. Can he play fourth line?
If this kid's elevated, throw him right into the Wolves, man. If they believe that he's the goods, Mike. I know you got to go, and we've got to get going. But like I'm seeing a lot of Kerfoot hate, and we haven't brought up your buddy Justin Hall. You can move guys out, you can waive guys, make them black aces, bring in other dudes. Justin Hall's still a part of the team. Alex Kerfoot seems to be, still kind of entrenched in what's going to happen. Can guys like Kerfoot and Hall develop something otherworldly and become major, serious contributors to a team that has an agenda of being successful and finally getting over the hump. Last couple of words to you, OG's Converts. We've got to move today.
Kerfoot, yes, I know that. I know that there's a lot of hate out there for Kerfoot because of the $3.5 million salary, because they think he's not worth it. He is respected and liked on this team for his versatility. He can penalty kill. He can play left wing. He can play center. I think they would have already moved him if they wanted to move him, if they wanted to clear the space. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to be on this roster past March the 3rd. I think he's going to be an integral part of, being part. Now, I don't think, once they move O'Reilly back to third line center or back to center, Kerfoot's going to be the guy who replaces him on that second line. So I don't think he's being moved. Justin Hall, I mean, I'd love to see Justin Hall off of this roster. I just don't think he's a good player. I think right now it doesn't behoove him to play with Morgan Riley. I think that exposes him in terms of minutes, but he's loved by Sheldon Keefe.
Right.
Because he's a big defenseman, even though he doesn't play big. And that's the thing. He's the only defenseman with size on this roster, and they're not going to move him. Now, you would hope that they'd move him, but they're not going to. I don't think he's going to be back next year because I think he'll get probably more money from other people. I think both of them are staying. You can hate them all you want. And if they make big mistakes in the playoffs, yes, there you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Paul is a right-handed Marinson. There you go.
OG's Converse, thanks for being here. Like 150 people in the chat with us right now. We'll have thousands of people watch this content on YouTube. It goes to your favorite podcast platform in the next 24 hours. Make sure to subscribe to whatever the hell you listen to us on. Come back to the YouTube channel. There's always a whole interaction, pictures, commentary in the community portion of the platform. We're having a lot of fun right now. The shit clock is ticking, Rick. It is. We're 5 days out from another trade deadline having come and gone. O'Reilly and Achari in the fray. I think it's a unanimous, or nearly unanimous. Most OG's Converts Leaf fans believe the Leafs need help on D. The question is, what kind of defenseman will be brought aboard between now and March 3rd? Will it be a tertiary support guy like Schenn, or someone with a little more bite, potentially a top four defenseman kind of guy like Gavrikov? Mike, I'll leave it with you. Reality versus fantasy. What kind of deal can the Maple Leafs make before March 3rd? The reality kind of deal, the realistic deal, and the fantastical deal. Go for it, and we'll leave it at that.
The fantastic deal is very unlikely to happen. The news that came down yesterday that Arizona chose the 2025 second round pick instead of the third round pick in the next draft tells me that the third round pick is going to get traded in a deal for a defenseman. So I would think that, the most likely deal to happen is a third round pick to Vancouver along with a contract for Luke Schenn. There could be another depth defenseman, another inexpensive defenseman. Maybe a team retains salary, makes that player inexpensive. But I do think that that's likely. It's going to be a depth defenseman, not a top four defenseman.
OG's Converts, thanks so much for being with us this morning. Follow us on social media. Go to Mike's platform at hockeybuzz.com. Again, he's the best in the business. That's why I've kind of hitched my wagon to the star. I'm still waiting for it to rise, but one of these days I'll be getting the amazing residual effects of Mr. Augello and his ascent through the hockey journalism world. I can tell you right now, if you're a betting individual, put some money down on the Convo, creating some content between now and March 3rd. So we're going to keep our ear to the ground, keep our eyes close to our phones and our tablets for what's to come. And if it's a deal of any kind of magnitude, you'll see Mike and I relatively in short order after things shake down. So for Mr. A, I'm Norm. Enjoy your Sunday, and we will be seeing you guys very soon.